Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. She's in the chair because she wanted to look at a couple of other cool figures from the collection today and just, I don't know, have a little bit of a nerdy pep talk about collecting. Because, sometimes when you, in the world of YouTube and TikTok, Instagram, it's real easy to look at what other people have and think, oh man, I'm not adequate. And I feel like that's easier to think when it comes to like the organization side of things. The people who have like 1,000 containers and everything's color coded and perfect, or like, look, I cleaned my house and now I'm the perfect, whatever homemaker. Like, but it can be that way with this stuff too. I was watching one of my favorite commentators who was talking about the consumerist side of social media and how a lot of it is about consumerism, like toy hauls, gadget hauls, like look at this crazy stuff I found on Amazon, you go buy it too, here's a bunch of links, makeup hauls, like all that kind of stuff. We are a consumerist culture. It just is what it is. I choose not to fight against it. I know what I am and I accept it. But what I would never want to do is inadvertently make somebody feel like, man, I wish I had that. Those are human feelings I can't control. Like, we're all going to feel what we feel, but I would never want to purposely say words or do things that might generate that kind of response. Because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to collecting and amassing a collection like this, a good chunk of it is just luck. I'm lucky. And when I say that, it's not just, the luck of going to the Walmart and being able to always find a transformer that I want, but also just luck of when I was born. Some of the stuff that I've been able to collect, I was able to get it because of when I was placed on the planet. And it's not that those things don't still exist and can't be collected, but I was able to get them at a time and a price where they weren't collectibles yet. They were just figures, or they were just, part of the advertising campaign. And now they're collectibles. But when I was younger, I was always someone who was into the nerdier side of the world. I'm on the elder end of the millennials. So I literally just dropped right in between like nerd culture's weird and nerd culture's how everyone makes money. And so it was a really good time. Not that when I was growing up there weren't things that were already expensive, because I'm 20 years past Star Wars, when the height of that, as far as being able to have money to buy figures and collect. But people who have some of those original figures from Star Wars, it's because they were 7 when it came out and their parents bought them the toy. And some kids played with the toy, and some kids, like me, some of that stuff that's in boxes I bought when I was a kid and didn't take it out of the box when I was 17, because I was like, nope, you stay in the box, thank you. Some people are like that. I can't say I was like that when I was a little kid with my toys, but as I got older and I started figuring out what collecting was, I was like, yes, I do want that, mother, but it's never coming out of the box. So it's just luck sometimes. It's kind of like, when was the right time to buy a house? 20 years ago. If you weren't an adult then me. So don't feel like I've got to make my collection that. Part of the joy of collecting is when you are able to find something that you've been searching for, or you just happen upon something that you go, woo. And collections like this aren't built overnight. This is 30 something years of collecting behind me and in there and the rest of the house. This is also, if I add stuff now, because I actually had probably a decade of my life where I did not collect anything. I had what I got when I was younger, and then I went into my late 20s, early 30s, and that was just, I had to work. There wasn't spare money to collect. So I boxed up my collection. It went in storage literally until, my life changed later on. And I'm in the working position I'm in now. So I've been able to, work my way up in my company, and I'm back in a position where I can enjoy the joy of collecting again. And I'm also married to someone who's just as big a dork as I am. And we, are each other's, kind of partners in crime when it comes to collecting. It's okay to not get everything you want immediately. It's gonna be okay. Um, and you don't have to compare yourself to what someone else does or doesn't have. Because as much as I love all of this formed plastic behind me and metal and pretty bits, it's still what it is. One day I shall, you know, be pushing up the daisies and this will be at auction somewhere, and that's when you can have it. When I'm connected to God's Wi-Fi, this goes on the eBay or whatever my progeny choose to do with it. But enjoy the process of collecting. And if when you're in the beginning, or maybe you're not at that place where you have the finances to invest in the hobbies yet, because being able to invest in these hobbies, whether it's you like to boat or hunt, you're a sports person, a gym rat, whatever it happens to be, gardening, none of that's free. Okay, it takes a certain level of work and time behind you to get to a place where you're comfortably able to make sure life is functioning the way it should and be able to indulge in your hobbies. Not everybody gets there. So whatever you are able to acquire, that kind of makes you cherish it more. Because for the longest time, like the most valuable, precious thing that I had as far as a collectible was my 11-inch Sailor Saturn doll. It was a gift. I did not buy that. Someone gave it to me as a birthday present, or was it a Christmas present? One of those. But it was given to me. And I've cherished it since I've had it. I've taken very good care of that doll. I still very much today value it quite a bit. But that was given to me, which is part of the reason that when the channel gets to paying for itself, I want to be able to hand gifts back in the form of drawings and stuff. So just, that's my little nerdy pep talk. Wasn't very well thought out. She's just coming off the flu when this is being recorded. But I feel like somebody needed to hear that it's not a competition. It's not. I enjoy sharing my nerddom with other nerds and not nerds and whatever. But we are all at a different place in life, and where we are in life can change at the drop of a hat. So enjoy what you got. Enjoy being able to live vicariously through the power of the internet. And then when you are able to get something that you've always wanted, well, it makes it all the more special, doesn't it? So all of the sappiness out the way. Let's look at a couple of figures. So I don't know if anyone who watches me remembers this show. Serial Experiment Lain. It was a weird show. And I think I watched it 4 or 5 times. It's kind of up there with Evangelion as far as like lore and stuff goes. Like you need like a master's degree in, I don't know, like computer science or something to fully understand it. But it was about a young girl who wasn't really into technology, but her family members were, and so is most of the world, and they're pretty connected. So one of those kinds of stories, like the dangers of technology. But she's not really into it. But eventually one day she approaches her father. He's like, you know what? I want a computer. And he's like, really? Yes. Oh, I'll go get you one. He's like, yes, I'm a nerd. You're a nerd. Let's be nerds together. And he gets her a little computer called, I think it's called a Navi, navigation, Navi. And it connects her to the internet. It's called something else, the Wired. That's what it's called. It connects her into the Wired. And then she starts discovering that she's more than just a little girl. Like the family that she's living with and the environment that she's in is literally shaped around her, because she is an experimental creature being, something that is able to exist in our material world and is basically a god being in the Wired as well, and just basically be like an Omnisaya if you compare it to Warhammer. It actually, I think it came on, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this show came on Adult Swim back in the day. I want to say that's how I first heard of it, and then I ended up downloading the torrent and watching the whole show because it was in English. Just everything that came on Adult Swim was dubbed, and I'm not really a dubbed anime person. It doesn't sound right. So I went and I'm admitting what I did. I torrented it. Is that a word? Torrented it? Anyway, I downloaded the torrent and watched it a few times. It was really good, but it's really strange. But it was one I would recommend if you like one of them like way off sci-fi type stories. I wouldn't call it scary per se, but it does deal with some pretty, like, tender subject matter, like um harm of self and stuff like that. Like one of the first scenes in the whole show that I can remember is somebody jumping off a building. So there's that. But in my early collecting days, so how old was I when I watched Lain? I had to be, I don't know, 18, 19 years old. So much happened at 18 and 19. A lot of that showed up when I was 18 or 19. Somewhere between like 15 and 20 is when a lot of collecting happened before I hit like 35, and then went like gangbusters again. Excuse me. But this is a very interesting doll that I was able to acquire. Windows right there, and it's a dreary day. It's raining. I didn't think, and it's evening. Well, not quite evening. It's like 6. But I didn't think it'd be this reflective. But if you ever watch the show, Lain sits at her computer in like this little bear like onesie hoodie, which incidentally I have one of these. Of course I do. But mine's black. It's great. It's very comfy. But this is what she's like in all day. It's like her little comfort area. And you can see her better on the side here. She has a very interesting haircut because, in anime, nobody can just have straight black hair. God forbid. But she's got like this weird side pony thing collection. The rest of her hair is short, and then she's got like this one long piece. But it's very distinctive, and she looks a little bit different. But on the back, it tells you more about her. It says, Lain is a 13-year-old student, unassuming and unnoticed. After a classmate does a thing, Lain begins to receive emails. Oh, that's right. So she sees the girl jump off the thing, and then she starts getting emails from that girl. And the girl says, I abandoned my body, but I still live here, which means here is in the Wired. As Lain becomes drawn into the mystery of the real world, we know, and the Wired world of the computer, all of that begins to blur. Apparently, I've never opened this, but it has 20 points of articulation. Not bad. I think, oh, look at that. Okay, I've never noticed that before, but down there, you see that? That's a little pair of house slippers. The details. Very cute. So, yeah, that somebody does a thing. She actually sees it. But then that girl who does it, like, starts sending all these emails out to people, mostly students, and everybody's, like, getting messages from the gone girl. And then that's why she ends up wanting to get the computer and get connected. But then it turns out that as far as being connected, no one will surpass what Lain is. Then we get drugged into the world of, like, who her family really is, who Lain really is. Why is she so special? Why is she able to connect to the Wired in a way that nobody else can connect to the Wired? That's how they say it. I really, really enjoyed this show. I would give it a recommend. Now, here's what's funny. So I bought this. This says it was purchased on 4/27/05. How old was I in 2005? So yeah, early 20s. So I wasn't 18, 19. How old was I? No. Yeah, I was, because I was like 21 when I bought this. So I think, I don't know. Early 20s. That's a problem with being born at the end of the year. It makes calculating how old you were when you did something a little hard. But this was $9.95. This was $10. So hey, all you internet sleuths who told me what was going on with those little Evangelion dolls that I've got. What do you think? What do you think her standing is on the open market? She's not for sale or forgive. This one stays here. But it's one of those weird ones that I feel very lucky to have gotten a hold of, because she was just randomly there, and I was into the show. $10. I'm gonna say it's $10 that worth spending. She might be worthless for all I know, but she's precious to me. Another property I really got into, and so did you. If you were a 90s kid, you were there, you and your PlayStation. Daggum Final Fantasy. Specifically Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy X, and Final Fantasy X-2. We all know that Final Fantasy VII is the perfect penultimate Final Fantasy story. That's why they won't leave it alone. They just keep basically remaking it at this point. That's why it gets a show and a movie and everything else. But then they came out Final Fantasy X, and here's why I really liked it. So when I first started trying to get into the RPGs and MMOs and stuff, back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show. Okay, no more of that. But back in the 90s, when disc gaming, so on a CD, started becoming really popular. So this is pre like massive multiplayer online games. Like we're getting on the cusp of that happening. And don't laugh at me. Okay, laugh, it's fine. But like when you would watch the cutscenes that advertise the games on like television, or you'd go to like the Best Buy or the Wally or wherever and watch like the Game Trader, any of those plays, EA. I'm really dating myself now. And these games would just look amazing. But then you'd go home and play them, and it's just like a little 2D chess set, basically. And when I was a kid, I didn't realize that those fully animated cutscenes were not the gameplay. So I started wanting to play Final Fantasy VII because I saw a really awesome cutscene on a commercial. I was like, oh, I want to play a game that looks like that. And then my parents got it for me. My brother had the PlayStation, so I had to beg him to let me play it. But we sat down to play it, and I get to play it, and I'm like, this looks like crap. Like in my teenage brain, I was like, why did they advertise? No, I wasn't even a teenager yet. I was a kid in the 90s. I was a little kid. Anyway, but why does the game look not like the cutscene? I didn't know that cutscenes and gameplay were not the same thing, is what that boils down to. So I was mad. But I got into it. I was like, okay, fine, I accept it. Chocobos are cute, whatever. But then Final Fantasy X came out. Final Fantasy X was like the first Final Fantasy game that, as far as I remember, and a lot of folks, and this is why I think it got so popular, that had that cutscene look to it. So it wasn't just, not that gameplay isn't great. We love our turn-based little dudes marching around the chessboard, marching on the grid. But it was the first one that had that like, wow, fully 3D rendered world that you were in. And for the time, and to be on PS1, PS2, it basically pushed the PS2 as far as it could go. And it was beautiful. And that got me back into Final Fantasy. And they did put out figures for it. And there were 3 characters that were super popular from Final Fantasy X. And they got their own game. And that was Final Fantasy X-2. It was the 3 female protagonists. And I managed to snag 2 of those female protagonists. I managed to get their statues. So number 1 is Una. I'm sorry, Yuna, not Una. Wrong show. But I loved her outfit. Like this was the cosplay when this was super popular. But they made 1, 2, and 3, her, Riku, and Pain. I managed to get her and Pain. I never could find Riku. It's out there somewhere, probably way more money than I want to pay for it. It'll just have to be a regret for the rest of my life. But I managed to snag her. This is where the price tag was. So I can't tell you how much I paid for them. Is it on the other one? No. The price tag, I took it off. I wish I hadn't because there's kind of a little gunk there. But she is a gorgeous figure. So you know the Japanese style, you get the replacement hands and stuff. Look, all the way down to like the lace in her boots. She is just divinely built. This particular figure, the designer was Tetsuya Nomura. And this was produced directly by Square Enix. So you know, the Final Fantasy house. Just absolutely spectacular action figure. I feel very fortunate that I was able to snag her. And that there were so many of her running around at the cons and whatnot. And the other one I was able to snag was Pain. These are the 2 I wanted the most. I wish I could have gotten number 2, but it just didn't happen. Love her sword, very reminiscent of Cloud's sword from Final Fantasy VII, except for the whole skull part. But love. Sorry, I got a text while I was filming here. Yeah, the magic happens on a phone. But yeah, she is just as beautifully articulated. Where are her extra hands? Because these were, I want to say these were unopened. No, she doesn't have extra hands. She's got a big old sword. Yeah, there's no extra bits to her, just big old sword. But I love that they were able to get the full detail in here. It says these are fully articulated. But I've never taken them out. They've never been on the stands. You do see a little bit of tape up here. When I was younger, I had them taped up on before I discovered that thumbtacks existed. So I can't ever rip this tape off because it will ruin the box. But yeah, never been open. You can see the outline of the stands back there. But these are ones that I have them. Oh, there's her extra arm. It's attached to the sword. But I have them because I was around. You know, like when stuff first comes out, it's not expensive. Like I think my Funkos, can you see them? I'm directly in front of the Funko wall, but the Funkos are a good example of that. Funkos aren't expensive. They're $12 a piece. Like there's a set price for a Funko, basically. They don't become expensive until something becomes popular and people buy up a bunch to resell them. Like I wish I had liked Adventure Time when Funkos, when I started getting into the Funko Pops. I didn't know about Adventure Time when I started getting into them. By the time I did, I was like, man, I'd really like to have a Finn and Jake and BMO. They're $200 a piece because they're being resold. But when they were initially released, they were $12 each. And so I don't think I paid an exorbitant amount. At the time, I'm pretty sure I probably got these from Tower Records or a media play, somewhere like that. So they would have been in the $19.99 to $29.99 range when I bought them, which in the 90s, that was a good bit of money to spend on a figure. I have no idea what their value would be today. I'm not interested in ever getting rid of them. So I don't really look up the value on stuff that I don't plan to part with. But I happen to be alive at the right time and be a nerdy person. So stuff like this, sometimes you can only come across it if you happen to exist at the right moment. Like right now, they're the SH Figures company. They're putting out, and Bandai Namco, they're putting out some really great little figures now. They're just beautiful. And in 20 years, there's going to be some new young collectors that wish they had those. And the only way they can get them is the aftermarket. But you happen to, if you exist now, you can get them for not $200 a piece. Although those SH Arts Sailor Moon figures, they are $70 a piece. She doesn't care. But that'll be the last group of Sailor Moon girlies I collect for a while. I haven't built a Sailor Moon doll set in like 15 years. This will be the last one for a long time because they are not cheap. But happen to exist. So in 10 years, if somebody wants those, who knows what those particular sets of dolls will go for. Or, you know, that's why remakes and reboots, I think, are a good thing, because it gives a new generation of collectors an opportunity to enjoy the media in a new way. And for those of us who just are looking for some other thing to add to our grossness, it gives us more opportunities to participate and, you know, bring the next generation into the fold of the nerddom, you know, because we got to do right by the youngins, you know, we gotta bring them along the right way. So it's just a quick little trip down memory lane and just a little nerdy encouragement. It takes time. And what you're able to acquire, remember that no two of us have the same collection. No two people are in the same circumstances. And enjoy every single piece that you are able to acquire, because it made you happy. It made you smile. And that's all that matters. So, as usual, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.